Nice.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 8th Community Advisory Council meeting. We will call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. And we'll go ahead and go around the room and introduce ourselves. I am Morena Barrera and I am representing District 3.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm Nancy Pemberton and I represent District 5.
I'm John Malden, I'm the director of ILO. I am Brent Kidder, lieutenant with the sheriff's office here in Sonoma County.
Masha Miller, District 4.
Imelda Martinez, Distrito 5.
Nathan Solomon, District 1.
Don Ozarito, District 4. Trevor Ward, District 3.
David Jones, District 2.
Robin Jers, District 1.
Alberto Boteo, member at large.
Sylvia with ILR.
We have everyone here today. That's awesome. That hasn't happened in a while. Thank you all for being here. We'll move on to item 2, approval of the September 10th meeting minutes. Are there any comments from CAC members? Is there any public comment on the minutes? Hand raised online, no hand raised online, so we'll bring it back to the CAC for a possible motion. Or for a motion and possible approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Robin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trevor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays?
Abstain absent.
Okay, thank you. One abstain, 2 abstentions. Thank you. That motion carries. We'll move on to item 3, current member attendance, openings and appointments. We have our attendance record included in the agenda packet this time, and I think we'll try to make it a regular thing. So please remember that there are requirements for attendance that are included in our bylaws that everyone, that the CAC approved. And we do still have a vacancy in District 2. Moving on to oral reports and comments. We'll start with the sheriff's liaison report. And just a reminder to everyone to speak slowly because interpretation is taking place as we speak. Thank you.
Good evening, hello again. Start with community engagement. Events that happened between the last meeting and today. Sheriff's office personnel, whether it was the sheriff or other members of the sheriff's office, had a couple different meet and greets. One of which was out in West County. Another was put on by the Salvation Army. We attended 2 different Mexican Independence Day events. One of which was at the Newton Burbank Center, and I don't remember where the other one was at. One of them had 5,800 attendees. The other one had 4,000 attendees, give or take. Those are estimates. This was a great opportunity for the attendees from the sheriff's office to interact with the event goers, passing out stickers, answering questions, just interacting with members of the community. We were invited to both of those events. The Crime Prevention Unit conducted a digital safety presentation at St. Rose School. I think I've talked about those before, but that's basically educating students on how to protect themselves online. There was a career presentation at Casa Grande High School down in Petaluma. We attended the Boy Scouts of America Troop 9 E-Prep Fair, which is an emergency preparedness fair regarding natural disasters and response. And then our PIO, Sergeant Valencia, continues to be a guest on the 2 largest Spanish radio stations here in Sonoma County. I asked him what the topics that are often discussed or that he's asked about when he's on those radio stations. He told me it's ever changing. It can, it can be related to or regarding immigration, just general information about investigations, recruitment issues. Sometimes they just do like a question and answer session, but, people put in, questions via social media. I don't know what it's called, Facebook Live, so I don't know, they answer questions. Something like that. I'm not on social. Switching to ICE-related information. Stats for the month of September. There were 59 notifications received from ICE. There were 11 requests for information. We responded to 8 notifications. And this month, there were 3 arrests by ICE in the detention facility. And we also had a warrant issued by DHS. That was the first time that's happened this year. It doesn't happen often, I was told. It's not that it's abnormal, but it just isn't, it's not frequent. And this was the first time that it had happened. The warrant we received on September 29th. The incarcerated person was released from court on September 30th and was only held an extra day and released to ICE on October 1st. Just for information, the warrant process, from my understanding, is just like any other state or county warrant. Except it's obviously issued by the federal government and signed by a federal magistrate. But if we were to receive a warrant from, say, El Dorado County or another state, asking us, a judge ordering us to hold the person until the extradition team can come pick them up, we would do the same thing. So our procedure doesn't change. It's just that this one comes from the federal government. And then I remember last meeting, there was a question regarding the kind of the difference between the request for notification of release versus just the request for information. I'm going to do my best to try to explain it again. So the requests for the notification of release are specific. ICE is asking when a specific individual is going to be released from custody. The request for information can be really anything. It's either, sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's an email. It's my understanding, and it can be, a person's custody status, just other information that even the general public can call up and ask about. The notifications that we return or respond to, and I think this is what the main question was that, do we respond to the request for information? Do we respond to just the notifications, or do we respond to both? And so the answer that I got, and the way I understood it, is that those responses are specifically related to the requests for notification for release. And so, for instance, this month's or last month's stat for September, there were 59 notifications, and we returned 8. The problem is, and I think sometimes it gets lost in translation, is that those 8 isn't just specifically related to those 59. Those 8 responses could have come from any of the responses or the requests earlier in the year. Does that make sense? And I think that's where a lot of the either the disconnect or the misinformation, they're not really correlated. So it's not like we responded to 8 of the 59. It's just this month we responded to 8 of the 415 that have happened this year. That will hopefully clarify it a little bit. If not, let me know and I'll go back and give them away. And that is all I have for tonight.
Thank you. We'll go to John for the director's report.
Sure.
Well, first I want to say a big thank you to Sylvia for the listeners at Angry Meetings tonight in place of Lizette. Lizette is celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday. And so she very deservedly has the day off, and thank you, Sylvia, for consulting that. It's work.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So, I also, for that reason, don't have as much detail about outreach as I might otherwise, because Lizette did a lot of that, but I know she's been to a lot of events in the last little bit. One of the ones that we went to was, the Locian, annual State of the Latino Community Address. Which was fantastic for anyone else who went. It was a lot of information, great speakers, very well attended. We did some tingling there and talked to other community members, among many other events that I know was attended, some of you here at the CAC. Another outreach event we did, since I was here last, was a virtual town hall about our report about the shoot of David Elias Chavez. That was on September 22. And that was one of our heavier attended virtual events. Like at any given time, we had 25 to 30 people on the video. We didn't keep account of exactly how many people over the course of the whole night attended. Some people came in and left. But at any one time, it's about how many we had. Went for about an hour and a half, and we had a lot of thoughtful questions from the community. So I was grateful that state law changed a few years ago such that we could actually talk about that case in some depth. Most of our cases, we can't do that. The state law doesn't allow it. So I was glad we were able to create that level of transparency. At ILRO, we are all going to go to an annual conference between now and our next CAC meeting. That's the NAPOL conference. National Association for the Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. That's the last week in October. This year it's in Minneapolis, so there is an opportunity for those who are attending to see the memorial to George Floyd, among other things. So that part of the event will be very somber, but otherwise we're very much looking forward to going to NAPOL here. So if you're looking for us the last week of October, we will all be gone. Our office will not be open. We are fortunate that we're able to send everyone to that training. And that's everything I have on my director's report tonight. We do have the CAC public correspondence report, and sometimes Lizette will give that. So it's that part.
Sure.
We have 7 emails received mostly today from various members of the public to the CAC. Give you some chair and vice chair in case you haven't seen them by email already. All of them are individuals commenting in favor of business item tonight's agenda 5C relating to the censure resolution. We don't have any other correspondence that I know of that's been received for the CAC.
Thank you, and thank you for reporting that, because I didn't get a chance to look through.
You're not applying with Brown Act. Brown Act is the public right to comment.
We haven't gotten to that part yet,
All agenda items.
correct?
Including the sheriff liaison report.
Right, and I have not opened up the public comment time for that part of the agenda. If you just
What?
let me just announce that I was going to pass around the emails that we received from members of the public. And that would be all for the CAC public correspondence report. And now we open it up to the CAC for questions or comments on the reports provided, and then we will take public comment on that part of the agenda. Thank you. Any comments from the CAC? Go ahead, Robin.
I have a question for John. Can you tell me the difference between, you said the California law now allows you to release certain information. What information, briefly, can you release and what can't you release? I'm not sure.
For many decades, California law required that all investigations into law enforcement officers, whether it's by an oversight agency like ILRO or by their own employer, be kept confidential. A few years ago, the state legislature changed some of those rules and created some limited kinds of investigations in which not only can the materials about the investigation be released, but they must be released. So now in California, we have a system where there's really no discretion that any of us that work in this field have about what is and is not released. But there are some things that must be released and some things that absolutely cannot be released. And it happens that investigations into fatal uses of force, like the Blas Chavez shooting,
Is one that can.
must be released.
Okay.
And in fact, most agencies, both oversight agencies, and law enforcement agencies, now keep websites where they just post that material as soon as it's available. The sheriff's office, to their credit, has been doing that for some time, and I appreciate them doing that.
Mhm.
And we follow suit at Iolero by following on to the sheriff's office posting by them posting on materials.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about this DHS warrant, because you said that it's signed by a magistrate. But there is also, federal agencies have what's called administrative warrants, and I just want to make sure that whether it's whether it's an administrative warrant or a judicial warrant.
I don't know that I was told the difference. I don't know that I can Google back.
And I had, thank
So
you.
you want to know if it's administrative or judicial?
Right, so an administrative warrant is one that is signed by, like that would be signed by the secretary of DHS, or it might be signed by some official within the DHS. A judicial warrant is signed by the magistrate or a magistrate judge.
The words that were used was it was signed by a magistrate.
Okay, so it's not really, okay. So it's a federal judicial warrant.
Yes, that's my understanding. But I'll confirm it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions from CAC members? Okay, now is the time for public comment on the reports that were provided, and we'll start with members in the room. We'll start with Jim Duffy, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, just a quick question for Brent, if he has any information on the accident that happened recently by Friedman's, where deputy sheriff hit an elderly man's car who was exiting from Friedman's. And the initial report was that he had his lights on and he was chasing some people who were racing the deputy sheriff. But then I'm seeing allegations now that he didn't have his lights on or his siren going. So I'm wondering if you heard anything about that or.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yeah,
Okay,
Michael Hilbert, part of the sheriff league on the board, the claim that, there's 59, requests for information and 8 responses. So, we should get some clarification. You don't respond to any of them, or you respond to a few, how do you choose to respond to a small number? I mean, do you have a policy of not responding to any, or why did you respond to 8, 59? Okay, and then secondly, based on what Director Alden said, now, my correspondence was not received. I sent an email to the CAC with a summary of the U.S. District Court decision and the Chavez case, denial of summary judgment, and I summarized what I consider the key points, and it points out that Dietrich was deposed in that case, and he appears to have answered a lot of the same types of questions Iolero would have asked if he had been there. So I just want to point out that I sent this, and I'd like some clarification whether it's received or not, because Based on what Director Alden said, this wasn't even received, so I was checking for that.
Is that the end of your comment? Thank you. Any other comments in the room?
Yes. My name is Susan. My comment is in regards to the sheriff's liaison report directed to the Community Advisory Council. I don't think that it's right that we're allowing ICE to enter our jails to take undocumented people. If they've been convicted of a crime in our community, they deserve to face the retribution and rehabilitation in our community. And our jails, our prisons should not be taking grounds for ICE. And I think that there should be some sort of advisory that gets ICE out of our jails. Because regardless of what the person's done, they're in our community and they're one of us.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there any online, thing about hand raised online? I can't see the name, so. Adina, once you're unmuted, if you could proceed with your comment, please.
Good evening. I apologize. I didn't catch the agenda item.
We're going over the oral reports and comments.
Okay. Good evening. I just wanted to say that I'm extremely upset about how Sheriff Eddie Ingram is being treated. In 2020, Measure P passed following the death of George Floyd, and Eddie Ingram is doing his job, and he is a Black man. And the majority of you there right now representing this authority are white people. So the hypocrisy in this community is astounding. I don't trust Iolero at all. Jerry Threet, who was formerly in charge, that white man told Eddie Ingram not all skin folk are kinfolk, and I find that extremely racist. Jerry Threet is the same man who I asked for help, or my apologies, my co-defendant, Miss Laura Ainsworth, asked for help because over 40 Latino children were raped at Boys and Girls Club and have not received restitution. And instead of helping, Jerry Threet got into it with me on Facebook and basically told me to be quiet. And so I find that very nefarious. I haven't had a chance to look into you guys, and now I feel that I need to. And I don't want to go to another meeting, but this is disgusting. The hypocrisy in this county, Democrats do not care about Black people. What did Malcolm X say? Democrats are the most racist people in this nation, and nothing's changed. He was 100% correct. That history repeats itself. So God bless you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close out public comment. And just bring it back to, if we can just get some of the questions addressed. Is there an update or any report on the Friedman incident that was mentioned? And then
I'm sorry for running late, but I did have one public comment if I could. I was just.
is it related to an item on the agenda?
It is.
Then can you wait until we get to that part of the agenda, please? That's the standard process.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, I do appreciate the other comments that were brought up. But if we could just get some responses to what Michael brought up, and is there, a process that Iolero follows when we receive correspondence? I believe staff responds back to let people know that their message was received, correct?
Yeah, so that issue we do. I haven't seen Mr. Hilbert's email, but we can go to touch base with him tonight, so we can make sure we get his email.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, regarding the accident, I don't have any information right now. It is still under investigation. That's the last I heard as of this point. The CHP is still investigating it. And then to answer the, I'm sorry, is it Hilbert, Mr. Hilbert's question about how the sheriff's office decides to respond? Yes. There's a matrix that the sheriff's office uses in order to make sure that the notification meets the standards that the sheriff has set forward. So if the request goes through that matrix and meets the standards, then we'll respond to it. If it doesn't, then we won't.
We'll get a little bit more information on that at the next meeting.
The matrix.
Yeah, what that is and how it's determined, what standards are met.
It's the matrix, I'm calling it the matrix, there's an actual name for it, but it lists all the charges that the individual has been charged with, and it has to meet those certain parameters that the
Okay.
sheriff's already.
Yeah, I just,
One more.
the word matrix threw me off. No,
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll move on from item 4 and go on to item 5. We'll start with item A, discussion of possible action on the proposed amendments to the CAC bylaws, Article 3, Section 2B4. This was continued from the last meeting, and this time we have the drafted language where we were including suggestions on how people should identify themselves when they're giving comment. Either stating that you're acting on your behalf, or if you're representing the CAC, to state that as well. And you can refer to that on page 12 of the agenda packet. Are there any comments or questions from the CAC? Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this business item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment, and if there's no further discussion, I'll accept a motion to approve as written.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Alberto. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Robin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Thank you, the motion carries. We'll move on to business item 5B, discussion and possible action on the K9 ad hoc final report. Lizette included some language in the messaging when the agenda packet went out, just to kind of explain for everyone to review everything, as there are 2 versions. And one of them is written more like a report, another one is a letter from the ad hoc. And I'll turn it over to Casey and Robin if you want to address the letter that you guys put together.
Do you want me to read?
Would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so, hello, everyone. The letter that you see at, page 13, 14, and 15 of the packet is not a letter from the CAC. It is, I'm sorry, from the ad hoc. It's a proposal to the full CAC to adopt for the purpose of sending recommendations to the sheriff. So the ad hoc, myself and Robin, sitting to my right, this is the final work product that we created. It is a draft of a letter that we are offering to the full CAC to state a series of recommendations with regard to canine policy. The letter summarizes very briefly some meetings, the reason for the ad hoc's work. And again, very briefly, the focus of the ad hoc was largely triggered by 3 canine events, 3 canine dog bite arrests from a couple of years ago. Iolero, to paraphrase the reports that came out of that, raised issues regarding whether the person that was bitten was actually an imminent threat at the time that the canine was used to bite the suspect, raised issues about the duration of the dog bite that occurred, and also raised issues about the failure to release promptly when the dog was ordered to release. So that was our focus when we reviewed the policy. We came up with 8 recommendations, which you'll see on 13, 14, and 15. I'm happy to go through them, but what I'll do right now, until somebody asks that we go through them in detail, is I will summarize them by saying, we asked for a mission statement to be included in the K-9 policy, to guide, both for the public and for the K-9 handlers. We asked for key terms in the policy to be defined. We asked for additional controls related to de-escalation, to having a specific tactical purpose. For specific guidance for the release, for compelling release, if release did not happen in a timely way, as it hadn't in a couple of these previous events. We asked for things related to an admonition that violating the policy would subject the handler to discipline, and a number of other things. So they're all set forth in the letter. We can certainly go through them one by one. I hope the CAC members have had the opportunity to read and review the letter, but to summarize it, we used these 8 recommendations as talking points in meeting with the sheriff a couple of months ago, and the sheriff's staff, including one of the leaders of the K-9 program. We discussed them all in more and less detail. The sheriff agreed to make changes along the lines of some of the recommendations. He said no, as to others, and he said, we'll consider some others. That was the state of affairs when we left the meeting. In fact, some important changes have been made. They're summarized in the letter. One of the things that the letter does is it thanks and commends the sheriff for making some important changes, including following our meeting. And it asks the sheriff to continue to consider some other elements that we think still should be addressed to make the policy more comprehensive guidance along the lines that the California legislature says should be part of any use of force policy. So this is offered by the ad hoc committee to the CAC in the form of a letter to the sheriff. We thought that this was the best way to provide our work to you as an action document, that if passed, the work is done. This gets signed, presumably by the chair, but by whoever is appointed to do so on behalf of the entire CAC, and it's sent to the sheriff, communicating that mix of things that I just summarized. Congratulations. Here are some additional things we continue to think are important. We did it this way as a letter summarizing the work and the work product because it's an action item. And we thought this was the best way to present it. So what we'll be asking at the end of this discussion, what we'll be asking for is that this letter be adopted by the full CAC, sent to the sheriff and whoever else we determine, board of supervisors perhaps, and others. But that will be the request. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. So I will address why there's a version 2. You all might recall that when an ad hoc conducts their work and provides recommendations, we write it as a report that's presented from the ad hoc to the CAC, and then the CAC does their analysis, votes, and then it's presented to the sheriff. The way that the K-9 policy review, ad hoc did the work was a little bit of a mixed process, because they were ready to present and have a report adopted at the June 11th meeting, and I think we all remember that discussion. There were some things that we felt still needed to be explained, and we were all a little bit confused, but the information was there, and the main points were covered. And I think from that meeting, the sheriff then decided to meet with the ad hoc to kind of follow up on the discussion and the request the ad hoc had previously made to meet and discuss some of the recommendations, which is where I believe the sheriff then began implementing some of the recommendations, but the CAC never voted on them. So I wanted to take back the letter format and keep consistency in how we present information and have it as a report that comes from the ad hoc that the CAC votes on, and then we present to the sheriff as we've done in the past. I believe the ad hoc looked through everything, and what I did was I took their letter and just moved things around, but I didn't take anything out. And so it kind of covers everything just in a different way. And I wanted to leave it all to you to decide how we vote and what gets sent over to the sheriff. And separately, I did draft some bullet points that Rania's working on so that we have like a guide that all ad hocs can use in the future, so that we have a better understanding of the process, or like the evolution of the ad hoc's work and how it gets to the approval process by the entire CAC and then passed on to the sheriff's office. That will come to you all later. So we'll start with questions from the CAC.
I just want to clarify, because
Yes.
the letter has 8 recommendations and the report has 9. And is that because some of those recommendations were already adopted by the sheriff, so they're not in they're not as recommendations in the report, they're just in the acknowledgement section of the report?
Right, and I wrote it in a way to acknowledge and give the ad hoc credit for continuing the work with the sheriff, and also a little bit of credit to the CAC, because we held that discussion on June 11th, and from that, I feel like we restarted a conversation that the ad hoc, that the sheriff had not continued with the ad hoc, and so we kind of pushed that on in a way, or at least I felt it that way. And so thanks to that discussion and the ad hoc's work, some of those recommendations have been implemented and are mentioned. So you'll see in the letter that Casey and Robin wrote, it states, the CAC thanks you for adopting this valuable new guidance. So some of those, I took them as they're already in place, and the ones that the ad hoc still hopes to see implemented in the future are included as current recommendations that are ongoing, that we still want the sheriff to continue to consider. Does that make sense? Yes.
Are we just doing questions or can we do comments?
Questions, and then public comment, and then comments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or we can just do them right now. We have 2 more business items. Go ahead.
With my comment?
Yeah.
Okay, my comment is that it's not altogether clear to me, this, letter, I feel like it invites ongoing communication with the sheriff. I feel like, the report is a more formal, as, you know, just, a report about what we accomplished, and it doesn't have the same tenor, I feel. It's just much more formal. It lays out the facts, and it feels like the ad hoc is done. And maybe, I mean, I guess that's what we really need to decide is like, does this mean that the ad hoc is no longer operating? Because I feel like the letter opens the door for more conversation. And it also ends with the CAC invites you or your staff to arrange it to attend a future CAC monthly meeting to discuss canine policy and practice.
So typically, when we send out a report that's been approved by the CAC, the chair and the vice chair write a message that's kind of like what you're reading right now. It's just not in a formal document that the CAC approves. And I think this is one of the reasons that Rania is working on a guide, because it's not that your ad hoc is done after that work, unless it's in your SMART goals that were presented in February, that after this is approved by the CAC, you guys are done, then you would be done. But if you still have other things to work on, like for example, the RIPA ad hoc is still, we had our recommendations approved by the CAC. And and we still have work that's ongoing. In the report, we didn't write it as a letter inviting more conversations, but when we sent it off to the sheriff, it's presented that way as, because it comes from the chair and vice chair as a message, like, here's what the CAC adopted. And if you have questions, please contact the ad hoc. That's normally how I present it. So it's not that we're closing it off. It just wasn't, the format that your ad hoc presented isn't consistent. And it's not, well, I think that we should have consistency in that we present reports to the CAC, not letters. And it's also written like speaking as a CAC, and it should be the ad hoc's words that the CAC approves that's presented to the sheriff.
So if I'd like to be heard on that. That kind of guidance that you're identifying now is not guidance that I feel that we have had at any point. It doesn't exist in the bylaws. So there's no clarity that what an ad hoc is supposed to do or required to do is to present a writing that is in a certain format or a certain type of writing or any writing at all. So, you know, I just don't feel that this is an appropriate way to go about critiquing the work product of an ad hoc. If this body wants to adopt as part of its bylaws some structure as to what is expected of an ad hoc for its final work product in the future, then I think that's totally appropriate. And I might even support it, depending on what it looks like. However, I think that there would be the opportunity to argue that this is the community. The community has all kinds, individuals in the community have all sorts of strengths and weaknesses. Coming into an ad hoc that might be as few as 2 people and saying, here's the format of the report, which you must create at the end of your work. I think that's really counterintuitive for a community group to have that kind of a detailed requirement for working an issue, coming back and reporting to the CAC and taking some action. That seems too regimented to me. Just to be clear, where we are tonight, in my view, our ad hoc is offering this letter for the full CAC to adopt so that it can be sent to the sheriff or to talk through details for changes prior to sending it to the sheriff. We stand behind this document and think it is strong, think it provides details, think that it is both complementary and requests more from the sheriff. So this document, as it's currently written, is our best work product, and we believe in it. The other document, this report, is not a document that we created. If I had written a report, if we had written a report, this would not be that report. It would be different than this. I don't say this is bad work, but it's not our work. So it's been harvested, information has been harvested from elsewhere to create this report, and it's not the report of our ad hoc. Among other things, and maybe this is minor, but this report is not ready to go to the sheriff. It says the ad hoc respectfully asks that you consider. I don't know who you is. Is that going to the sheriff with a request to consider recommendations? And, you know, that's one of several things that would be profoundly different if we prepared this report, which we didn't.
Thank you. So yes, I wrote the report based on your letter, which I stated earlier. I think there are plenty of examples of reports that have been approved by the CAC and presented to the sheriff. It was recommended and highly suggested that your ad hoc work with Rania because she has an understanding of kind of how we present the work, and we did see a product of the type of report that you wanted to present, and a lot of us were confused. And then I kind of felt like a letter wasn't the right way to present the information, but if other members feel like it's appropriate, then that letter can be voted on tonight, and that's fine. Otherwise, if we need to have the rules or the guide that will not be included in the bylaws, actually, it should be a separate tool. I don't think it's appropriate unless Nancy and I talk about it and other members think so. Then we would, but otherwise I feel like that's something separate that could be given to all CAC members. That does not need to be included in the bylaws, but if you prefer to have that adopted by the CAC before you proceed with an actual documented report or recommendation to the sheriff's office, then we can do that if you'd like. I'll leave it up to the CAC and what you guys would like to do, because ultimately it comes from the CAC as we're accepting the work of the ad hoc and presenting that to the sheriff and to the public. Any comments from CAC members?
So first off, I just want to say the letter is a huge improvement over what we saw in June. So that this is much more like digestible and readable. I tend to prefer the letter. When I flip through these two things, I'm with Robin. I think it invites conversation, and I think that tone is the right tone to set with the sheriff's office and everything you're looking for. So I don't mind that at all. I tend to prefer the letter format. I also agree with Casey that, you know, I don't think we've done a job really to describe this is the format that we should set forth. So I think it's a little rough to be saying, you know, now, starting now, let's do it this way. I think it's a valid conversation to have, but I think it's a little too much too soon there for me. So again, I think the letter looks great. I'm really glad that the sheriff ended up meeting with your ad hoc. I think, you know, that should be applauded, and I think our work tends to be far better when there's a conversation and there's a little back and forth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we sent this letter, if the sheriff's office came back with some changes, and then and then you could, you know, finalize it and call it good. But I mean, I like the tone of the letter, so that's my 2 cents for it.
Any other comments?
I agree with a lot of what Nathan just said. I do think that this letter coming from where we were in June to now is a huge improvement. I also prefer the letter over the report format. And I just, well, I mean, I think it's a good letter. I think with the sheriff, you know, I'm also glad you met with the sheriff and he agreed to meet with you, and there's been some movement on some of the objectives with this, so this is great. And I would recommend when we meet in February, as we discuss our SMART goals, our goals going forward, that if we are gonna have some tighter parameters of what letters or recommendations from the CAC are, that we set those then, because it is kind of a moving target to try to be setting those kind of mid-year or late in the year, so. But anyway, that'd be my recommendation going forward, but I also prefer the letter.
Any other comments?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna repeat everything that was said, but I think what sticks out to me is that this is a report from the ad hoc, and what I'm hearing from the ad hoc members is that the second one is not their work product, so it wouldn't necessarily be a report from the ad hoc. So I would also vote for the letter. I think it's after the conversation that was had with the sheriff and the collaboration that was getting going, I think it seems more appropriate. And so I'll leave it at that.
I'd like to make one comment. This letter is not from the ad hoc. This letter, if it is passed, will be from the CAC. That, the ad hoc can negotiate and meet with the sheriff, but the ad hoc cannot represent that it is speaking for the entire CAC until the CAC says the agencies.
That's right, and that's exactly the way it's written as well. Yeah. I agree.
Right.
It's our work product.
It's the work of the ad hoc product to the CAC is what I meant.
Okay, so we'll move it to public comment. Go ahead.
First, I want to thank you guys for all your work on this. Casey and Robin, I know you've been at it forever. And I know what that can be like, for ad hoc. I really appreciate all the work that went into it. I love all the recommendations, except I'm not sure if defining the key terms is a little bit too much. If that's a little bit overreach. I look at apprehending. I kind of know what the word apprehending means. You know, violently resisting arrest. I feel like I know what that means too. And they could put more words in to really hone in on what these terms are. But I'm wondering if that would weaken their policy. If this isn't a less is more kind of situation where if they strongly define these terms, if then anything that they miss and is outside it all of a sudden becomes problematic. I don't know if I'm saying that right or expressing it correctly, but that's just my thought. But I don't dislike them enough to say, no, don't do this. But I'm raising the question.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Michael.
In version 2, I noticed, pre-appointment assessment of how the, suspect's ability to understand verbal warnings. We should keep in mind that both the, taser and the canine have less lethal than using a firearm. And some jurisdictions have tried to ban tasers as being unsafe, which potentially could lead to more shootings, so. With respect to this business about make sure the suspects understand verbal warnings, we need to understand that there's a lot of drug fueled incidents. There are violent drug fueled individuals that don't have, you know, that's not an appropriate test to see if someone is loaded on drugs and understand the kinetics. And I don't see that explicitly stated in the vote, but I just want to make that clear. You know, it is not necessarily that someone is guilty on drugs. Understand all, but it's been said when we want to do this, take evidence. And take the person in custody of the police.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we don't have any hands raised, so we'll bring it back to the CAC for any final thoughts. I just want to close out by saying that, again, I put it on the CAC to decide which version to do. I do think that we have lots of examples that we can go off of, and I think our discussion today is an example of the things that we work on to help the sheriff with. There's a way that things are done, and then it's interpreted a certain way. And then we have to make changes to either clarify things or set some kind of standards. So from this discussion, it's obvious that we need guidelines on how we think information should be presented and who it should come from and things like that. So we will work on that. But ultimately, we leave it to the group to decide. So having conversations leads to better understandings and clarity on where there's confusion and things like that. So I think this is a good example of that. So if there's no additional comments and the CAC feels comfortable with moving forward with the letter that was drafted by the ad hoc, then we can proceed with that. And again, the report was just basically the same words, put in a different format. I didn't word it any other way. It was their work, but just organized it. So, yeah, I'll just say that. I didn't want to make it sound like it was different than what you were intending to put in the letter. And I do thank you for your work. It is definitely more summarized and easier to follow through than the information that was presented.
I just want to say, I appreciate that we're having this conversation, and I appreciate the work that you did to translate this into a format that you feel is more representative of the work of an ad hoc and the way we want to communicate with the sheriff. I can totally appreciate that. I just felt like I didn't know that. And and I think it is, you know, the vote of the CAC is what should carry this forward. But I don't want to, I want it to be recorded that I certainly appreciate the work that you did to try to bring it around to something that you feel is more consistent. And if that is the goal, then I think that's fine going forward. I have no problem with that going forward. I think Casey didn't know that or get that or something, you know, so,
Yeah. I didn't realize that we needed like a guide, and I think it'll help ad hocs in the future. And that guide we change later, so we'll bring that to the CAC once it's ready. So is there a motion to approve the letter, version 1 for business item 5B?
I'd like to make a motion, but first I want to ask this question. If the CAC were to adopt this and we send it to the sheriff, do you, as chair and co-chair, have a preference as to who signs it? I'm sorry, vice chair, my bad. Would it?
Both of our.
Yeah, so it would be the chair and the vice chair, right?
Yes.
Okay.
On behalf of the CAC.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'll make a motion then. I move that we adopt the letter that is set forth at pages 13 through 15 of the packet tonight. That the full CAC adopt that and request that the chair and the vice chair sign it on our behalf and send it to the sheriff and CC it as they deem appropriate, including potentially to the board and anywhere else that is appropriate? That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nate. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Thank you, the motion carries. Okay, moving on to business item 5C. Discussion and possible action on the proposed resolution to censure Sheriff Ingram. Sorry, this item was put on the agenda as was suggested by Councilmember Trevor Ward, and we thank Vice Chair Nancy Pemberton for drafting the resolution that is before you, but we're actually considering the revised version that was printed and sent to everyone today.
It was passed out.
Oh, passed out, sorry. I'll let Nancy
So-
go over this.
One of the, well, let me just say what the amendment is, and the amendment addresses issue involving the protocol that was agreed upon between the sheriff and Ivalero about what is a complete investigation. And in this investigation by the sheriff, internal affairs, they did not interview the deputies or the sergeant that were involved. They instead relied on the interviews that were done by the Santa Rosa Police Department, which is not investigating violations of policy, but was investigating violations of criminal statute. And the civil depositions, which again, were not concentrated on violations of policy, but we're looking at civil liability. So I added into the fact that they didn't follow those protocols in conducting it, and adding that our disapproval of their failure to follow that. And in what seems to me to be the most important investigation of several years, the use of deadly force. It seems to me to be the apex of when an investigation should be done correctly and follow protocol. I know that many of you have seen the back and forth about what the sheriff's rationale for not issuing the live order admonition to his employees. There is no precedent from an appellate court or the California Supreme Court about this particular instance. However, had they done a complete investigation, had they interviewed those, he could have issued the live order admonition to them because he had the right to discipline them. His claim is that he can't do it for Ialero because Ialero doesn't have the power to discipline the employees. But the sheriff does. And had the sheriff's office done complete investigation, he could and presumably would have issued the live order admonition. And we would have at least some of the information that Ialero sought from the employees, the two deputies and the sergeant. So that's sort of my rationale for this. And my rationale for having those 1, 2, 4 paragraphs.
Any questions from CUC members?
I have a question.
Yes.
The paragraph 5 on the first page. What components are referenced?
So there was a protocol that Ialero and the sheriff's office agreed, or the sheriff and Ialero agreed on a sort of a checklist of what is a complete investigation, and included in that would be interviews. So employees who were the subject of the investigation.
And that is documented.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then otherwise, there's a typo on the top of page 2.
Thank you. Where is it?
Top of page 2, you have the in vogue twice.
Oh, yeah, you're right, okay.
Can I be heard on this?
Oh, wait, sorry, Casey, I'm just gonna interrupt really quick. We have Sylvia, since this wasn't available online for the public to view, she's sharing her screen so that people on Zoom can see the changes. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I read the letter from Clean, which is, I think, at the back of this packet, and I thought it was fabulous. I thought it was a really, really good statement from a group of concerned citizens that hit on a lot of notes. That letter ends up by asking the board to do a number of things: reject the DSA's harassment narrative, affirm your support for John Alden and Iolero staff, urge Sheriff Ingram to order deputies to comply, recognize oversight as risk management. I think those are great bullet points. And I think that I could easily support that set of statements, because I think they're really well stated, and I think they make the appropriate requests or demands in this setting. A censure is a reprimand for misconduct, in my view. That's how I think of it. And I think that the definition of censure is pretty close to that, that it is citing misconduct by an individual. And I don't feel, for a number of reasons, that censure is the right approach to take in this setting. I think that the right approach to take, because where I think this ultimately is right now, is the sheriff has said, I can't order in this setting people to answer upon pain of discipline. And he's provided reasons for them, whether you agree with them or not. That's the position that he has stated. In my view, if you have a sheriff who does not work for the Board of Supervisors and is responsible only to the voters, the way to go about getting to the result that I feel like is the appropriate result, which is doing everything possible to get the sheriff in a position where he has to either order his people to participate in interviews like these, or to say, I'm just not going to do it, and face the voters on that. I think that it requires that the county, who, the board is their boss, the county has got to lead the charge in saying, okay, you say that there has to be meet and confer to make this happen. Let's get that going. Let's make that happen. Let's meet and confer, Sheriff, with you, your people, Iolero, HR, etc., and let's get this done. So that let's remove the impediments so that the sheriff can no longer say, I can't do this. That would be my approach to this. And for those reasons, and because I don't think that for me, it's appropriate to say, I'm part of a reprimand for misconduct to you, Sheriff Ingram, I'm not going to support this, even though I am with it in so many ways for the reasons that I've said. That's just a bridge I'm not gonna cross.
Thank you.
But the sheriff can enforce discipline on deputies, right?
The sheriff, okay, so, well, look, I'm not the expert on
Yes,
this.
I mean.
I'm not the expert on this. All I could do is work through the issue with you.
That answer has to be yes, right? He has the ability to discipline his staff.
For violations, yes.
I mean, he
Yes.
has said that to us in meetings that we've had with him. And even about policy, he said, well, I'm not gonna put that reprimand, policy into my canine policy because it's in a number of different places in, other, in the, in his other policies. So yes, he does have the authority to discipline.
I don't think the censure has to be for misconduct, it's an expression of severe disapproval, and so I will respectfully disagree with you about that, about the meaning of the word censure. I do want to say that this comes on the heels of the sheriff not responding to a subpoena that was issued by Iowa when whistleblowers complained. And instead of doing what is legally the right thing to do when you have a subpoena that you don't want to respond to, or you think you have legal cause not to respond to, is to go to the court and move to quash it. He did not, he just defied that subpoena with the excuse that Measure P doesn't let him do this. Let him respond to a subpoena. I think we need to say to him, if you have trouble with the language of Measure P, it is up to you to seek a legal solution. To keep saying Measure P was badly written, Measure P doesn't do this, Measure P doesn't do that. That is true in lots and lots of laws, as you well know. The way you resolve that is you go to, when you think that you can't do something, you go to court and say, I can't do this for this reason, what do you say, Judge? But what Sheriff Ingram continually does is to say, I can't do that, it's up to you to make me do that. And that's not transparency and accountability, that is answering to the DSA, not to the community.
I thought the subpoena issue is in the courts.
Because Iolero brought a lawsuit, but the way if you receive a subpoena.
Yeah.
And you don't think you should have to respond to it, it is up to you to go to the court and ask the court to quash that subpoena. It is not up to the person who issued the subpoena to drag you into court.
To me, the big question here is do we think the sheriff is operating in good faith with these arguments? He has two arguments, right? Constitutional and the VA, so, which is labor law. I think the constitutional one is as a non-issue. I mean, that we put aside, the labor one is a little bit secure to me, but it feels very obstructionist from him. And not entire, it doesn't feel good faith, and it's hard to know within his head, hard and all that. But when you have the DSA coming on one side with all these accusations, and then him on the other side with these, what feel like very obstructionist arguments, then I start leaning into like, this feels very bad faith, and the goal, his reasoning is very circular. Right, as Nancy kind of pointed out earlier, I think that's why we're talking about like the censure stuff and yeah, I think it's a valid question to ask, and I'm not sure, I don't know if anyone has a clear view of what the right path forward here is, because there's a lot going on. But I think, showing our disapproval of what he's putting out there is totally within his purview, and it's something to consider, and I totally support that.
Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Can it be something other than a censuring? I mean, is it serious disapproval? Maybe the exams that rest of the concern. Censure, I think, Mr. Jones's comments make good sense.
How about? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just thinking, maybe censuring in this situation that is cloudy, not fully litigated by the courts, as I understand. Censoring may be too harsh. I think something should be put out for the public to see. And maybe censoring is too harsh and just it's a matter of label.
Can I just point out that the only place that says censoring
Is the head.
is in the head.
Yeah,
Every place else it says express disapproval.
and that's why I
Yeah,
said.
I am happy to change this to propose resolution expressing disapproval.
Okay, so it's dictionary definition of censure, verb, express severe disapproval of.
I actually did, but I
What are we
don't like
talking
the
about?
word. I'm happy to say expressing
What's the
disapproval.
definition of that word, so?
I think in the general public's mind, that censoring, may feel or seem more severe. I'll say that.
And I think the general public is pretty much behind a censure. I mean,
It may well be.
Read the letters to the.
So my comments are kind of aligned with what Casey brought up, because I feel like a censure coming from the CAC is kind of symbolic and it doesn't carry a lot of weight, although in a way, we are kind of putting in writing what the public wants us to say in regards to this situation. However, I also think that the situation is kind of complicated because I personally think that the sheriff's in a tight spot. And I don't support the fact that the deputies were not forced by the sheriff to answer ILRO questions, but I understand like the points that he's saying, and I feel like there's a lot of gray area somehow, and it leads me to think that there's a bigger issue, and I saved those, a lot of notes, that I wanted to read for the next business item. Cause I kind of think it's mostly the Deputy Sheriff's Association pushing on certain, providing all the pushback, because we have seen Sheriff Ingram is willing to work with, the CAC. He does, listen to comments from the public. And he does provide responses when he's not in agreement. And I feel like kind of what Nate said, there are, what did you say, like there's a constitutional thing and then the labor law points that the sheriff brought up, and I mean, I don't know how it's really handled in his position, but unions are really strong, and him being in the position that he's in and having to uphold employee rights and things like that, I think make things difficult. And I also agree with Nancy's points that some things in Measure P are very clear, and then there are some things that I guess were found to be like not enforceable. So I think there's like a bigger issue that we need to bring up, and ultimately, I think it's what Casey brought up, that it needs to come back to the Board of Supervisors, and we need to clarify a lot of the issues, do the meet and confer, and then make everything that the voters intended in Measure P to take place lawful in a way so that there's clarity, and then we don't have these back and forths between ILRO and the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office on what's supposed to be done and what isn't. So I don't think that a censure is going to carry a lot of weight.
With whom?
Well,
Yeah.
in my personal opinion, even when people do proclamations, I will say that I kind of see them as pointless sometimes. There are clauses that point out history, that declare kind of what our goals are, but a lot of the times they're filed somewhere, put on a website and that's it. I mean, it is kind of a statement coming from us, but I feel like we're not the right body to do a censure of the sheriff. And maybe if we changed it to what Nancy said, even though it's kind of the same thing, expressing disapproval. Because the process is very messy. And I don't know, I feel like we represent the community and we're supposed to bridge the gap between what's going on with the sheriff's office and what the community wants, and I don't know the best approach to do that. Yes.
It was sent out earlier today, in Marissa Endicott's article. There was a meeting Tuesday that referred to the Board of Supervisors. Do we know anything about that, if that led to anything?
John,
There was no reportable action happening.
oh, it was a closed session. Do you know what the agenda item was? Was it
There were-
litigation,
Well, I
employee?
think if I followed Mr. Miller's or Michael's comments, sorry, I remember the use first names here. Michael's comment, I believe the article in the Press Democrat was referring to a closed session relating to a conference with respect to labor negotiations.
Right. That's what I understood.
There were lots of other closed sessions that was on Tuesday as well. That's the one that's being asked about there.
Yeah, normally there's no reportable action on those.
I had a question for you, Lauren. Like, so
Yeah.
you said we're not the right body to do the censure, like, so
But
in
in
your
my
view,
opinion.
in your opinion, and so in your opinion, who is? Yeah, if not us, who? Because-
I think it should be the board of supervisors. Yeah.
So I actually, I'm probably going towards the line of maybe using Nancy's disapproval, because I feel like it's the opposite. I think that we're the first step in the community's response to the sheriff. And so us going to full, I mean, even it's the same thing, you know, we're splitting hairs here, but when we go to censure here, then we basically draw a red line for what it is that our CAC can and can't do. And so far, we've had some success with the sheriff meeting with us, talking to us, collaborating with us. And so I want to express my disapproval, leaving the door open to continue to work with him. But when I was thinking about this, I thought the opposite. We are a huge deal, and this is a big deal to do it and we are the correct body to do it and be the first ones to do it, because we're hearing from the community. So I agree with it. There's responsibility of the Board of Soups, but we're like that first, we're like the canary in the coal mine, letting the Board of Soups like, no, hey, the community's letting us know. So it should come from us first before, you know, to kind of create pressure to the Board of Soups to do that. And I agree that some of his arguments seem kind of circular to me, and that's why it's so disappointing. But I agree that we go with this, probably not using the full word censure, even though if it's likely the same thing, but I think it gives us a little wiggle room to work with the sheriff and push him harder without saying censure, and then that's it. Like, what do you do? What do you come back and so he's like, all right, well, they've censured me, so they don't want to talk to me. That's what it would seem like in
Fine
public.
with me.
So, yeah, but again, I think it's a really big deal. We are a big deal, and we should be the first ones to do it.
I think the way that you explained it kind of captures what I was trying to say, that it's our job to say and represent the community, but the word censure, I feel like what that is defined as in government, I feel like that is not what applies to us to do. So a expression of disapproval, even if it means the same thing, technically, I feel like it's a little bit cleaner, and it kind of leaves that room for continuing conversations with the sheriff in a way.
I think that's true.
hopefully. So if there's no additional comments from CAC members, we will open this up for, yeah, go ahead.
I did just want to, in my comment, I wanted to thank Jim Duffy for your comments at last month's meeting, which I was listening to intently and picked up on of broaching this idea, which is why we're discussing it at this meeting. So I want to thank you, Jim. And I wanted to thank the chair and vice chair for your work on writing this up, and the vice chair, Nancy, thank you. Thank you for the work you did on writing this up and refining it and making the product that we're seeing and talking about now. And this has been a great discussion, and I think we basically have come to consensus, and yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said, and yeah, I liked your analogy of we're the canary in the coal mine, you know, we're not the same as the Board of Supervisors, but we are appointed by the Board of Supervisors, so we're a part of the democratic process, and this has certainly been an issue that there's been recent articles on, that the community is very engaged and invested in, and I think, yeah, the vast majority of the public comment we see is disapproval. And I agree, that more needed to be done, and specifically what you also highlighted, what's literally highlighted on the page here, thank you for this addition, Nancy, is, yeah, that it seems very incongruent with the spirit of accountability and the will of the voters in Measure P, that internal affairs was not included in this. So yeah, I take lots of agreement with the comments that were made, and thank you, Jen, and thank you, Nancy.
One more comment. So I think this is great and it's a good discussion. I think one of the gaps that this investigation kind of made really clear to us was this kind of lack of cooperation and lack of interviewing that we were able to go through. It was just the process that we all thought was kind of nailed down. The other gap here that we aren't discussing that I think we should kind of put to a future discussion at some point is how to deal with an officer involved shooting, a person who's under investigation and then leaves the office. So that's another huge gap that this whole investigation kind of sheds some light on, and I think we need to like think about, you know, some way to resolve that, like some sort of trigger, like an investigative trigger, so that once they give notice, we can swoop in an interview before they become formal employees. So a little bit of a side topic, I admit, but I just wanted to throw out.
I have another question.
Yes.
In what I've read, you know, it keeps talking about the misinterpretation of, you know, Measure P. That, you know, we interpret it one way, they interpret it another way, of the DSA. And is the meet and confer that, that I've also heard about, and I heard Casey talk about, would that be a forum in which you talk about this interpretation or this misinterpretation? Is that what a meet and confer would do?
Kind of.
I mean, I think that this misinterpretation thing is gonna go on forever. If it doesn't, you know.
That's why you have all the lawyers and all the judges. People use our tax dollars to pay all those people.
Yeah.
Because laws need interpretation.
Maybe we should have a measure MNOPQ. And, clarify the misinterpretations.
Don't worry, there's gonna be one 2028.
So, I did have one question on the amended version, because I'm a little confused on. What would we get out of calling for an internal affairs investigation now? And how would Tyler and the public benefit from that if the sheriff's office? I might be confused on the whole process, but the sheriff's office is not supposed to investigate itself. If like an internal affairs investigation is conducted for administrative purposes, does IOLERO get to be involved, or does it only get to audit the internal affairs investigation that we are calling for in the resolution?
No, so with use of deadly force, IOLERO under Measure P has the authority to do an independent investigation whether or not the sheriff does their internal affairs investigation.
Okay,
The internal affairs investigation, you said the sheriff's not supposed to investigate itself, but that only has to do with the criminal conduct. So when the use of, when the killing happened, Santa Rosa Police Department was asked to take that, but that's because they were investigating this criminal allegations, or the possibility of criminal allegations against them. The sheriff never loses the ability to do an internal affairs investigation into violations of its own policies.
and do we know if the sheriff's been consistent with conducting an internal affairs investigation on, use of deadly force cases every single time?
Well, the protocol for the complete investigation was adopted after the last use of deadly force. Before this use of deadly force, but after the one before that. So this is the first use of deadly force in that internal affairs investigation that's been conducted since the adoption of those protocols.
Got it, and we're saying he did not.
You did not, they didn't do a complete investigation because they didn't interview their own employees.
And do we know if the sheriff provided a response for that, or he didn't mention it?
I don't think so. It was mentioned in the clean letter. Which was sent to, it was addressed to the board of supervisors, but it was also sent to the sheriff, and I haven't seen any response to the sheriff, from the sheriff about that.
Okay,
One last thing, I also really support Casey's suggestion about the meet and confer. I think we should encourage the supervisors to meet and confer on these like key points. Just to get that going, because you're right, I mean, they're gonna use that as an excuse forever.
Try to remove every impediment that can be removed.
100% support that.
So I think that is something that we should address in the next issue. From the business item, because the meeting confer with the deputies association. So it wouldn't be just a meeting between the sheriff and either Leo and board of supervisors or HR, it would be, it could be the association. Right.
yeah. Okay, so, we'll move this, we'll open up the item for public comment. If there's anyone, we'll start with individuals in the room. You got 3 minutes. Got it? Go ahead, Jen. Start with you.
Thanks for taking my comments and thanks for having this on the agenda and thank you for having a robust discussion about it. This would not be the first time that the Community Advisory Council has censured, and then they used the word censure last time, the sheriff. So, Sheriff Ingram was censured for misusing, social media to basically endorse, not as Sheriff Essex, thank you, John, for basically endorsing Sheriff Ingram. Back in early 2022, go online and watch the videotape and, I would say that this is misconduct by Sheriff Ingram. Because if you read Measure P and you read the operational agreement between IOLERO and the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, both of which are available to you on IOLERO's website. He clearly is violating the unfettered access and the cooperation portions by not issuing live Arthur recommendation. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm definitely not well versed in labor law. But my understanding is the only way to force the DSA to meet and confer on this would be for the sheriff to issue a live Arthur charge. Because if he did that, then they would have to say, text our folks, we want to go to meet and confer. If he doesn't do that, we can request they go and meet and confer. But I don't think they have to. So it really has to come from the sheriff. I may be wrong on that, but I don't think I know. But I'm not an attorney, I'm just some schmuck from around the corner, you know, so who knows? I want to push back, since you haven't cut me off yet, on Measure P being not clearly written. Before we put it on the ballot, we had it, we got the endorsement of the ACLU and NACOL. And I know what it was like to go through that. And ACLU, you were probably chair then too. Took 4 months and it was brutal. I was on the phone with more flippin' attorneys from the ACLU, all with their little questions about it. And they really put that thing through the ringer before the ACLU of Northern California signed on and said, yes, we would endorse this. So any piece of legislation people are going to attack, and any piece of oversight legislation that's going to be attacked by police unions, come to California Coalition for Sheriff's Oversight meeting. You guys are all invited. We do it monthly. We talk about meet and confer all the time. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you. Who's that?
Okay, I'm really tired of being told that it's only symbolism, so it's only symbolic. That is all we are, and if we aren't accepting of that, we just need to just eliminate the CAC, it should go. Because that's what you do. There's only 2 of us who have been involved since absolutely day one of getting this thing created. And then a few people came in just a little bit later. But everybody else in this room has not been in this since day one, where we had to fight just to have the public have a say. And to get that word out to the rest of the public. That's what you're here for. And I got so sick of the poor sheriff's office. Oh my God, oh, they've been so mistreated and they need to be given a chance. They tried to turn this into an organization, a committee that would give the sheriff's office a chance to prove how good it was. And they did all kinds of backroom stuff to try to take it from what it was supposed to be to being that. And we had to fight every step of the way to get it to what it is. And I don't want you to say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't do this because it's just symbolic. To me, that means, as I said, to the board of supervisors, if you don't like symbolism, rip the goddamn flag off the wall. It's important. It's really important. It's all we have, and we need to use it as strongly as we can and get it into the public as often as we can. And it's what you're here for. And I really like what Nate had to say, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Alberto.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Yes. Okay, done.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll go first.
Hi, I'm Paul Weaver, another schmuck from Rowan. I also favor the word censor because I think it is stronger and more enforceable. And I do agree with the public comment. We've come, it's been there, we all recognize it, O'Mara is kind of the voice of the public on this. And there are a lot of people who read the letters to the editor, really quite concerned, and I think they do understand the issues quite well. So.
Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Megan. I'm usually on Zoom. I've been watching these guys do their work. All of you are so smart. You are all equals, all of the lawyers and the people in the Sheriff's Association. So just be strong and be proud of yourselves and the work you're doing. This is a very important issue. A man was killed. It was the first case that was going to be used with Ailero's power, and it was completely shut down. You need to censor this activity. You guys know better. I mean, you don't know better. You know that the issues are right here. So very clear. You guys have done your jobs. You have done the job so well. So I thank you all very much for doing the work. I know it's very time consuming and tedious and very, very sad and tragic also. And that is what you're here for. It absolutely is. And if it's not powerful enough, oh well, it definitely Sheriff Ingram needs to be accountable and have somebody say something real to him. You know, this is something real. A man was killed. He didn't do his job. Okay, the job was not done. It was obstructed completely. That man, we watched him get killed. His family, I watched them cry. You know, I mean, it's too serious to just be bloodless about and passionless about. This is important. And, but please use the word censure, please send this thing, thank you. Oh my God, I care so much.
So I'm hearing impaired, so I'm gonna stand and speak louder. For those of us who might be hearing impaired. I want to say that although I was not with Gaia when it started, I was here when Iolero started and the CAC. And to take, at that time, in official capacity as deputy public defender. And so, there is already precedent on giving these types of reports or statements of disapproval or censures in your 9-year history. And, it is precisely why you all have been created. The Commission on Human Rights gives these type of statements all the time. The Commission on Women's issues gives these type of statements. And here, the Board of Supervisors, I can tell you for a fact, do not read policy. They do not. I have been working on the sheriff's policy regarding SB 54 and immigration for 20 years. And every single time I have to show, do not take my word for it. Here is the policy. And they always go to what is said by the sheriff, whichever sheriff that is. And so it is really important that you are the ones looking at the trees. The Board of Supervisors are looking at the forest. You have to read it and you have to prepare the things in writing because it will not get to them otherwise. And in regards to not following something because it's poorly written, SB 54 is the worst written law I have ever seen. And he says that I've got to follow it and I've got to form ICE and all these people because someone wrote a law. And when he doesn't want to do something, he says it's misinterpreted or there's misinformation. Most of that misinterpretation or misinformation comes from that office. And so this is your opportunity to explain that. There's a reason Measure P happened. It was precisely for this. Because at any given moment, the Board of Supervisors could have said, well, that was a nice project, we're done with it. And removed it, only because of Measure P is there actual a backbone to be able to do this. And as already been stated, this is the nest, you are the community's voice. And this is the second Latina person who's been murdered. And been prevented from the ability to do the oversight that you all are supposed to be able to do. My name is Tex. I loved Measure B. When I saw it come on my ballot, I was so excited because it was about time that the sheriff had some accountability. When I say that, I remember Jeremiah Traps and Amy Lopez. I was a kid when they were running for the sheriff, sorry. I have to speak the name, but they're why I'm here. Dominguez Thomas, that's just another. He's a name in a long list of names. And as a voice for our community, please enforce the law that we voted for so that we can see the accountability when we lose one of our own. Every member of our community matters. And unfortunately, the sheriff has been acting as though they have the right to take members of their Buffalo community through the judge, jury, and executioner way too often. There are so many people who feel strongly about this who can't be here today because they're not even aware that we can have a voice in front of this council. But I want you to use the strongest possible terms you can because they took the strongest possible action, which is murder. And so please tell the Board of Supervisors to do something. Tell Sheriff Ingram to do something because as community members, I've asked them before, both the sheriff and the Board of Supervisors, and they don't listen. Maybe they'll listen to you because the will of the voters is for justice. And right now, he's evading justice. And we must support the sheriff and their deputies. So sorry for getting emotional. I'm sad over all of the family members we lost because of the lack of sheriff oversight. So.
I'm just here to ask you to please use the power that you have to get the sheriff to do what he's supposed to do. I just want to thank Susan and Jim and everyone, Megan, everyone who has spoken. I just completely agree with that. The more transparency we have, the better. And I share the emotions with them when we just spoke. It's tragic. It's tragic to watch it in our town. It's tragic to watch it across the country. And you have the power to do something. And the power of your words are important. And I think he needs to be censured. Thank you.
I think we should be asking for reconciliation of the fact that there was a big payout in the civil case, you know, at the federal court. Juxtaposed to the findings that, you know, no law was violated and no policy was violated. So we should be thinking about how can we get, you know, the sheriff's office to address this disparity here where you pay out a large amount of money in the civil case. As far as censure, that's commonly understood to be a reprimand coming from a body with disciplinary authority. And so we usually use that word as like for whom I'm living for. It's actually, it's not appropriate for this body I'm using, that's the. But you know, this says that sheriff failed to interview them separately from the police, so apparently it's. And it implies the sheriff looks at what the San Jose police, the interviews they conducted was sufficient to not only determine no law was violated, but also apparently was good enough to determine no sheriff's policy was violated either. So is that reasonable or not? That's what I'd like to know. And then, you know, further on, you know, to reconcile what happened in the civil case. And I think you did not receive the email I sent, which, you know, I highlighted what I thought were the important points considered by the federal judge, which resulted in a big payout. So, you know, I'm really disappointed you didn't get that because apparently you didn't. So I think you should, you know, look at that decision, which is what was that? The denial of summary judgment is the document from the federal court. Whether you want to or not, I will say everyone, you should read the whole thing, beginning to end. Give you some insights.
I'm Alshina Horseman, I'm with Clean. And I would like to just say that it's my understanding that it's normal to do an internal interview with your employees, officers, deputies after a shooting. So it's very weird that they didn't even do their own internal interviews. So it's not, yes, they take the police one, but then they do their own about policy. So why didn't they even do their own, let alone Iolero do it? So I think if we even get away from the emotions of it, we want transparency. We want transparency. We want to know what's happening. We want them to cooperate and stop obstructing working with Iolero. We voted for it. We want it. The people want it, but I think also we're kind of a testing ground because we're a new organization in California and we're actually pushing accountability and transparency and the DHS does not want it. So I agree that he's probably in a very difficult situation because they're probably pushing him. And honestly, I think they're the harassers. I mean, they're harassing this office. And I just want to thank you guys because this is because of you. Thank you. And us. And also, I really agree about symbolism. It's critical. Symbolism is everything. That thing about take the flag down, but still can't. So Symbolism is hugely important. Those documents from the human rights organization get used all the time because they're paper trails. Here's what happened 20 years ago. It's documented in this research that they did, that they wrote up. So we are creating a paper trail, whether you do censure, disappointment, I don't even care, just, it needs to be said that this is outrageous. So I get nervous speaking publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We'll start with the first name. I cannot read and like that. Yes.
Elaine, can you unmute?
I guess that means me.
I guess so.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say I strongly support this resolution. And I was going to use the word urge the CAC, and then I said suggest the CAC, and then I said demand from the CAC. But I decided to just say urge the CAC to vote for yes. Silence is consent. If this doesn't pass, a non-vote signals agreement with what is going on and all this lack of accountability. You know, I have to agree with Susan Lamont. I mean, I'm tired. I am very tired. It mystifies me that here it is 12 years after the killing of 13-year-old Andy Lopez, and there's still no meaningful cooperation from the sheriff's office. In 2020, over 64% of Sonoma County voters passed Measure P. I was one of them, creating Ordinance 6333 to address exactly this issue. Yet here we are still fighting for the basic transparency and oversight. When reading the resolution, I was struck by the language on page 2. The Community Advisory Council to Arellano urges, not demands, not ask, but urges, like you're on your knees, that Sheriff Ingram to allow the protocol for a complete independent investigation, particularly on the issue that you're talking about now. The fact is that the word urge is even necessary shows me how little progress has been made. This protocol was agreed by the sheriff and Iolero. Why must we still get on our knees for cooperation? Why is this still an issue 5 years after Measure P passed? Do voters have no power? Are we meaningless? I mean, that's what our president is saying. He's saying, you don't count. I'll just go into your city and just raid it. You know, is the sheriff above all the people? I mean, I realize that the Board of Supervisors has no control over his salary, but is he above the people? You know, I'm a great grandmother. I'm concerned for the safety of my children on the streets when we let these things happen. Again, I ask the CAC to vote yes. Failing to do so is not neutrality, it's complicity. And we've been too complicit too long. That's why we're in the spot we're in right now. Look at the world the way it is. No accountability. And here in Sonoma County, we're still fighting for accountability. And also, I disagree with what the gentleman said. I got the feeling like he said, oh, we've got to go a little gentle with the sheriff. No, you've got to let him know. We the people demand when we make a vote that you follow what we voted for. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Adina? Go ahead with your comments.
Good evening. I appreciated the commentary made by Miss Sylvia, and I apologize I didn't catch your last name. I'm also extremely angry right now that my heart is racing to see a room full of primarily Caucasian people wanting to censure Sheriff Eddie Ingram, the second Black sheriff in California's 172-year history, and to see your faces of you laughing and talking about him like he's beneath you. Do you know how hard that is? I can't imagine as a Black man facing the racism in this county where you declared racism a public health crisis, and we have less than approximately 2% Black people in the whole county. The way that you were treating this man right now, who is adhering to the law, which is his job as sheriff. And I do believe I've seen Mr. Ingram at church. And if he is a Christian man, to reject the law is to praise the wicked. To obey the law is to fight them, which is Proverbs 28:4. I am beyond flabbergasted at how you were treating him because, as he stated, and I'm familiar, I'm a former government employee myself, with bargaining and negotiations. If he were to oblige you with what you're asking regarding Measure P, he would be sued like what happened in Los Angeles. And I know that Mr. Ingram is 100% transparent. You are speaking on things you know nothing about. I hang out with criminals all the time in my free time. How many of you do? You don't. You absolutely do not. You're speaking on communities you have no understanding of. Malcolm X was correct that Democrats are wolves in sheep's clothing. That has not changed. You were virtue signaling. I've emailed all of you. Over 40 Latino children were raped in Sonoma County at Boys and Girls Club, have not received just restitution. John Doe #1 was deported and killed himself. So now I'm being sued for defamation for speaking out for those children. You care about what's popular in politics? None of you knew Andy Lopez primarily. He was best friends with one of my best friend's son. You don't talk to these people. You know nothing about them. And then you use me as somebody who is biracial to fill in those gaps and educate you. So I'm going to post this to Instagram and all my other socials. Guess what? I know that I am well known because Supervisor Gore just announced he's resigning from his run for Senate and he won't be running for re-election for supervisor. So I look forward to letting the community know how I feel about you. God bless.
Okay, next up. Ellen.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. This is Ellen Foreman Opsler, and I live in Petaluma, District 2. I want to thank Councilmember Pemberton for drafting the proposed resolution to censure the sheriff. By not directing the deputies to submit to interviews with ILARO and not even having its own internal affairs investigators interview the deputies, the sheriff fully undermined the entire purpose of Measure P, ensuring accountability, transparency, and maintaining public trust. I agree with the person in the green overalls, I'm sorry I missed their name, that especially in the case of a deputy killing a man, it's so important that the council speak for the community to express that no matter the sheriff's reasoning or whatever pressure he's under, his actions were unacceptable. As a person from Clean said, it's outrageous. Please pass the resolution, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Next, we have Alan.
Hi, yes, thank you. This is Alan Wolves. I am calling in to encourage and support the idea of censoring Sheriff Ingram. I think it is absolutely ridiculous that we passed Measure P in Sonoma County with a supermajority in as polarized as a place as we are. Everyone agrees on this. We need to have sheriff oversight. And for their little fake union to challenge that law and go to court with it and say, hey, this isn't constitutional. And then the Board of Supervisors completely changing the law as we, voted for it and as it was written. And then to have that thrown out of court saying, it wasn't illegal, the law was just fine, but now we still have to operate under that changed thing we didn't vote for. And then we see exactly what happens when Ingram just squashes any investigation of a deputy murdering an unarmed man. I think that censure is the least thing that should be done. That's just the no-brainer option. I know that Susan was being in jest when she said remove that flag from the wall, but you really should, because we are not honoring any of the values that it supposedly represents. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have one last hand raised from Sarah.
Hi there. This is Sarah Levitan and Joey Smith. We're calling to say that we've been watching this whole meeting. Thank you for having it. And we also are encouraging the strongest possible language. I don't believe the Sonoma County Sheriff is a rogue agency yet, but it seems clearly on the path. And I really think that the resolution as stated is important to honor the voters of Measure P and the original intent of EOLERO. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands raised, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the CAC for a final thoughts and a possible motion. Or a motion, Herman.
I'll move the adoption of this resolution with the correction of the removing the typos on the top of page 2. And I'm gonna leave the word censuring in and we can see what happens.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
No.
So I actually prefer that we use the word expressing disapproval. But if the motion carries, then I can't make a change. So I'll ask if there's any abstentions before I vote. Are there any abstentions? Okay, so then, yes.
Why don't you ask? Why don't you first pass a motion to say to replace the word censure with express approval and see how that comes out. I would really like this to be unanimous from the CAC, so I'm willing to change that if it's going to cause any unanimous vote.
It's not going to change my vote.
Okay. Then I'll
So if you amend your.
censure.
Okay.
I think I had it. Majority.
Okay, well, I feel like I don't like the word censure, but I do think that we need to have something stating our point of view as representatives of the community. So I'm gonna vote yes. So I think that just leaves one no and the motion carries. Thank you all. And thank you, Nancy, for the work on that. Okay, so we'll move on to item 5E. Discussion and possible action on the press release from DSA. And remember that we normally word everything as possible action in case we decide we come up with something that we want to do. So the press release was included in the packet. I asked Lizette to also include Sheriff Ingram's newsletter. And we also have the letter from Clean in the packet. And it was brought up by Casey actually at first that maybe we have a discussion on what has been released to the public and the current conversation on this investigation. So I don't know if anyone wants to start with any points or if we want to just continue maybe the comments that were brought up previously about the DSA. I wrote a whole like page and a half of things that I wanted to say so that sometimes I'm all over the place, so I put it in, wrote it down so that it could be a little bit more clear. Does anyone have anything they want to say, or should I just?
I could say something. I would just, I mean, just reading this over, this reeks of desperation to me. Like the ad hominem.
The press release?
What, the press release, yeah, so I mean.
Clean letter.
No, the clean letters are great, I'm talking about DSA press release, thank you. You know, the comments about. Just the ad hominem attacks on people. And the language is just over the top, just like. Just so full of melodrama that I just feel like when I read this over, it doesn't even come across as serious to me. And I think it's interesting. I kind of wonder what led them to release this. I mean, that's where my head goes, like I'll leave it. So.
I would also like to comment on the language because I felt like it makes me feel like the sheriff's office is going in the direction that this country is going in. When I read some of the language, I just thought, that sounds like exactly what's coming out of Washington to me, you know, and that is frightening to me. So, yeah, I mean, I take it seriously, but I'm frightened by it. So I think it's even, I feel even more strongly about, you know, what we just passed, the resolution that we just passed, because I really feel like this needs to be stopped. This is ridiculous. Anyway, yeah.
So I kind of saw the comments from the sheriff and DSA as separate on the processes in the David Pelaez Chavez investigation. And I saw my thoughts on the press release where I wrote down that the DSA, I think, is out of line, and I also wrote over the top. I think it's very much misleading. I'm just gonna read everything that I wrote. I thought it would be good for the sheriff news release to be included, because I think the CAC, if you aren't signed up for it, should also read what he wrote, because I count that as like separate from the DSA. And I thought for transparency, it would be good to include. I agree with a lot of the points in the clean letter, but not with everything. If we want Iolero to be able to conduct thorough, independent investigations and have deputies comply with subpoenas and Iolero administrative interviews, including providing live marker protections, we need the DSA to meet and confer with Iolero. And I will say that I wrote this without, like Jim said, knowledge of that an attorney has on how the process actually is conducted. And also with the thought in the back of my mind that maybe there are some things in Measure P that were found unenforceable that might need to be addressed, but I don't know. I thought it was written well, although I thought it was kind of done last minute by county council. So anyway, we need the DSA to meet and confer with Iolero. This should be seen as a necessity. The DSA should be working on building trust and positive relationships with the community. Instead, it seems the DSA is more invested in protecting its members from accountability in cases of misconduct, rather than advocating for reform to address violations. I personally don't think the issue is really with the sheriff. It seems there are issues with how Measure P plays a role, and because it's so conflicting, I think there is a need to eliminate the court battles and wasted taxpayer dollars that have gone into challenging parts of the Measure P. I don't think anyone is above the law, and we should all be held accountable for our actions. I think Iolero exists to engage a process of understanding that is triggered from the analysis of incidents in the field and from public concern, but also for accountability when wrongdoing is found. I think as a CAC, we need to support Iolero as best we can to do its work, which is the work the community demanded when Andy Lopez was taken from his family. Right now, there's a gray area that needs clarity. We need to fix this by helping to force the meet and confer process with the DSA so that the parts of Measure P that are being said to be unenforceable can be enforced. I don't know if this means starting over and taking the original intent of Measure P back to square one, or asking the Board of Supervisors to have council do this correctly and not in a rush process, as I felt was done. 5 years have passed with one fight after another, and I think it's irresponsible and a waste of money to choose not to fix the issues that exist. I believe Sheriff Ingram is the type of person who has willingness to hear the needs of the people and to apply changes for the better. It's not an easy process, but I think we have seen many examples where he works on finding a solution. Sometimes changes and results take time, and sometimes there's situations where his hands are tied, but I think that's where we come in. We need the community to continue being a voice. And to help the CAC, we need Iolero to continue to exist, and we need the sheriff for public safety, or the sheriff's office. I think we have to work together on this, and we all need to ask the Board of Supervisors to provide whatever direction is necessary, including an oversight ordinance, like what Sheriff Ingram said, was done in Marin County, to make all parts of Measure P lawful to ensure compliance by the sheriff's office and fulfill the intent that the voters of Sonoma County supported. And that's what I wrote. So I kind of think that there was some other comments that maybe we need to address the Board of Supervisors somehow. And I don't know if everyone's in agreement or what the right way to do that would be. And
I wondered, that one, at least ask you to clarify what you mean by first, Measure P being found unenforceable. Well, I mean, there's a peanut issue. Yes, the judge said that, in the whistleblower context of that, but it's on appeal now, so it's not a final, which it's still out there to be resolved.
I'll say that I use that word because like there are parts of Measure P that are being challenged, and it's not my expertise to determine if it's fully enforceable or not, but it seems like that's one of the issues according to Sheriff Ingram, and if that's the case, then we need to fix it. If it's not the case, then we don't. I don't know if we wait for, like, everything that goes to court, we have to wait for a judge to decide, and like Nancy mentioned earlier, maybe it should be the sheriff initiating that process if he has confusion on what's enforceable and what's not. But that's why I wrote, no, I don't personally think, I think I helped with Measure P and doing like the Spanish kind of, I don't know if we called it a town hall, like informational discussion. I thought it was a really great effort by the community, and I think that it should be fully enforced. So
I would
if
just be
there's,
careful about adopting someone else's framing and language, so that's all I'd say about that, so just be careful of that, because you're kind of carrying the torch at that point. And I think it's still being litigated, it's unclear, I mean, we know what the past, we know what the will of the voters is. So I'd just be careful about adopting their framing.
right, so my point is that we know that, and if the issue keeps coming up that we didn't do the meet and confer process, then I think that we need to push that forward somehow. How, I don't even know how it works.
No, I can.
Or who's involved, or, do you have an idea, or I guess maybe either of you, Lieutenant or John, how does the meet and confer process work? With the DSA, and who can be involved in those conversations?
I'm trying to come up with a succinct but also accurate answer, and it's hard to do because there's a complicated body of law about that. Maybe a fair place to start would be an employer decides to change a policy or a practice at work. They notify the employees. And if one of the employees' unions or bargaining groups gets back to the employer and says, we'd like to meet and confer to better understand this change, then the process starts. It usually involves a conversation between that union or bargaining group. And whoever on the employer side is involved in creating the new policy.
So it kind of sounds like what Jim Duffy explained a little bit earlier. It kind of would need to start with the sheriff's office as an employer, stating that he's going to fully enforce everything in Measure P, and then if the Sheriff's Association has an issue with that, then that's where the meet and confer process begins.
Well, again.
Because his statement
to
seemed-
Take a very complicated topic and give you an accurate answer briefly, which is probably not possible in this particular field, because the question. The state law of what issues are subject to meet and confer in this context. With police unions or associations and oversight systems. Is extremely complicated and nuanced, and so who has to be at the table varies a lot in the issue. But I do think there is consensus that if the question is just about a live arbiter advisement, nothing else. In a sheriff's office, that would have to be started by the sheriff saying they were going to start getting live arbiter advisors at speed in the context. And for that reason, on that one issue alone, and I'm being very careful here to say on that one issue alone. That has to start with the sheriff or the concept. In the sheriff's office. There are many other issues for which these answers are different because this area of law is complicated.
Got it. Thank you. So. Yeah.
I think that, I think the thing that disturbed me about the GSA press release was the inaccuracy. And the ad hominem attacks and the threats. I think those three things were really disturbing to me. And I would like us in some fashion, either this month or next month, to respond to that, to express our disapproval for that kind of, putting that kind of misinformation in this melodramatic fashion, and not mentioning all of this is that they actually violated a court order in doing this, but that's. That's part of the melodrama. But at any rate, you know, it occurs to me that one thing that we could do would be a simple thing that we could do would be to pass a motion or a motion approving the clean letter and, you know, sending that to the Board of Supervisors saying we join clean in each and every one of its, you know, in this letter in total. That would be an easy thing to do. There might be disagreements about some things, so maybe we can't do that, but that's one possibility.
I think I would like for something to come out of our group specifically, and I don't think, I mean, obviously probably not today, but I would prefer for us to delve in and create something of our own, may mirror clean, probably at some points, maybe not all, but I would prefer that over simply adopting and passing.
I agree with that there too.
Yeah. Can I ask who would like to draft something?
I can, assist someone in drafting something.
Definitely give it a go as well.
So does me and Island, that's fine.
I can help as well.
Okay. Okay, so that would be something that we would bring to the November meeting. Any other comments?
Time is of the essence.
Unfortunately, we have to have a meeting unless we schedule a special meeting, but
Well, could we have, like the public or anybody here, just send like to the CAC? Feedback on this item? For future reference, that, let's allow.
yeah.
So I would urge you, any of you has feedback on that, just send an email and.
Feedback on what should be written, how it should be written, is that what you're talking?
Just, yeah, any thoughts you have on the DSA letters? I have my own thoughts, but.
Well, I would just warn that communications among the CAC outside of the public setting risk Brown Act violations, so it has to be less than a majority working on those issues.
Well, the communication would go to the entire CAC as we typically, Lizette normally sends out, but the only ones working on the letter and incorporating any comments received from the public would be Nate, Trevor, and myself, since we just volunteered.
I think what she's saying is that it's,
There won't be-
I don't think Nate's asking for comments from CAC members. I think he's asking for comments from the
From the
public.
public.
From the public,
Yeah.
fine, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
just want to make sure we're not stepping in it.
While we're at it, let's open up the item for public comment to get ideas and comments on this,
Behind you,
behind you.
behind you.
I'll start with her and then we'll go.
I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Bernice Urbetta, she, pronouns. I actually came here for this item. As an attorney, and a former county employee, it is, alarming, disturbing that someone's bar card could be at risk for doing their job. And, as many times as I had to cross-examine, deputies, as many times as I had to do a vicious motion against deputies, as many times as I had to ask for video cameras, from deputies, what occurred to the director is incredibly, outrageous. And it is set to silence for doing his job. And if that is what's happening to an attorney, one can only imagine what is happening with people within the organization who want to listen. Or for my former clients and those who are within the custody of the sheriff's department to be able to speak and ask for file complaints to ILARA for this thing, for any incidents they may have. And so, I have been away from the CAC for a number of years. And I don't interact much with John, but I can tell you, there is no ethical violation that I have ever seen. He's one of the most fair and ethical people I know. And he has a lot of integrity, and it was unfair, and this is a bullying tactic that should be brought to light and held accountable to.
One, we'll go Jen, and we'll.
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay.
I had my discuss, I hadn't read the DSA publication before today, and that's not what I'm gonna talk about, but I did read Sheriff Ingram's email, like shortly after he sent it, and I was really shocked, because I was like, wow, what email list did I get added to get this, like, personal correspondence directly from him, then I saw it's like his monthly recaps of what the sheriff's office does. And for me, it was really shocking because I felt like it was like a op-ed private defense piece being sent into my inbox from the county. And it just felt like a really big overreach of power, kind of like what you were saying earlier about the stuff we're seeing from the federal government. Because it's like, that's not where our tax dollars should be going, is him sending me his personal defense for why LaRoche should be stopping what they're doing. And so I don't know what your plan is in regards to the DSA document and this editorial document, but I think that as a community member, that was an overstep by the sheriff, and I think that should be included when you're discussing the issues that were taken, because if he wants to advocate for his defense on his own behalf, he can do that, but he shouldn't be doing that as the sheriff, through the sheriff's mode of communication to us as citizens. So, thank you.
Jen?
I'm infuriated by your letter, Lorena. You are naive if you think that any legislation on civilian oversight will go unchallenged by law enforcement unions and be called poorly written. And the Marin example, it's just rich that Sheriff Ingram is pointing to that, because I'm friends with the community organizers who wrote it and pushed it through, and they're stuck in meet and confer right now to get things done. I suggest you really go to some NACOL conferences so that you can talk to other people and realize this is how it goes when you have civilian oversight. You establish it, you have legislation, and that gets challenged, and then it gets worked out, as Nancy said, by the well-paid attorneys, and it's very frustrating. But that, and you do your best to write it well. Measure P was written over the course of a year by people who came to the CAC, and we said, we're writing this thing, any of you want to come, we're meeting at Arlene Francis, show on up, and you didn't. And we said the same thing, and threw stuff in at the very last minute when it became obvious that it was gonna get on the ballot after George Floyd. But and some of the stuff that has gotten held up by the courts, that was stuff you CAC people threw in at the last minute, because it hadn't been vetted. That wasn't stuff, because then I had to go back to the ACLU and say, okay, there are 5 new things that got put in, and they were like, well, we didn't get to see this ahead of time. I was like, I couldn't help that. You know, and they let it go through and left their endorsement. So please be careful before you carry the bullshit forward that Measure P was poorly written. Every single group, LA gets it, San Diego gets it. Everybody gets told that their language is poor, and it all gets fought, and it all has to get worked out by attorneys in the courts. And yes, you wind up having to go to the ballot again to fix things. We're gonna have to go again and fix the appointment schedules for you guys, because we all know that 2 years on and everybody dropping off at the same time isn't working. There's a lot of things that, you know, there's housekeeping that gets done, you know, but that doesn't make it poorly written.
And just for clarification, I did not say it was poorly written, and I can reread that and put this in writing.
Please don't.
And we can get the transcript. Those were not the words that I used. Thank you. Next.
Paul Bieber. I just want to note that the main reason why sheriffs have a problem with Measure P is because he doesn't want to enforce it. And that most of his comments are evasive. And it's mostly just nonsense he's putting up. These are obstructions, quasi-legalistic arguments that really don't make much sense at all. And he's acting as though his constituents were not the public, but the DSA. If those are the people he's trying to please, and the DSA in turn is offended by the idea that the public has a right to investigate their behavior. That's what it all seems to come down to me. So I like the clean letter. I think the clean letter was cleanly written. Enforced.
And I am Alchina Enforcement again. I agree that the DSA should be working on trust. I thought that letter was hyperbolic and insane. And I also showed it to an acquaintance and we were concerned about, you know, they were accusing Iolero of making leaks and then they had a leak that could potentially expose the whistleblower, which almost could have possibly been intentional, maybe. I don't know, but it seemed extremely unprofessional, and I think they should be reporting to the bar. I agree that John Alden is very ethical and has a lot of integrity. I also just want to say, I do think that the DSA might be behind some of the obstructionism. Like, I mean, I think that Eddie Ingram, you know, is a lot of the times doing a good job and communicative and accessible. And a lot of the obstructionism could be coming from them, and I don't really know, but I think that this letter was just absolutely outrageous, and that you should write a very strong and worded response.
We have Susan first, and then to you.
First, if time is of the essence, shouldn't all the CAC members who think that not forwarding just this letter, the clean letter as it is, if there's something they object to or something you want to add or something you want to take out, shouldn't we be saying it right now? So that you have the information and you don't have to, because you can't communicate in between. It seems that everybody should know what it is you want or don't want. And I'd say we've sort of been here before. The very first report that Jerry Threet did. Sheriff Freitas went off the wall. And ad hominem, and you read his response, and it didn't even relate to what the report was. I mean, it was just like made up. It was like Donald Trump talking and just saying crap and hoping it sticks to the wall. The only thing that was missing was the threats. But we've been there before. And I think that now we have the threats because of the current, what Robin said, the current national mood. So but I think you should be talking about your stuff. Right now, I will say, I think I mentioned this once before, as when Sheriff Ingram and the sheriff's office were at Andy's Park, not too long ago. And some of us went to protest and I was the first person there, and then Sheriff Ingram and I had a conversation together. Which was totally polite on both sides. And he said, I want you to know I've worked to get out most of the bad people. And I say, we now know that he didn't. Because that wouldn't have been written.
Misinterpretation of bad.
Michael?
No, you notice that the DSA letter was done by Sam Singer, so you probably know he's a very highly paid, Bay Area PR guy, one of the top PR guys in California. So you'd expect something, hyperbolic from him, you definitely expect that. And we'd also expect him to be very careful not to, including falsehoods and actionable, false statements in it. So I would say maybe you might consider that, it's not worth responding to, it might be the best thing, it's not any response at all. They're also a very concise statement, denying any wrongdoing or ethical violations or anything like that, but, what's coming from fleeing is, too long-winded, this business about harassment and retaliation, and those aren't substantive accusations, they don't need to be responded to. This is in relation to a bar complaint. Now, the bar is concerned about ethics violations by licensed attorneys. they're not concerned with, good public relations between the different bodies, but, cold hard violations of ethics, such as lying or, doing things outside the law, so. A lot of this is not even on point as far as the bar complaint. The one thing that they seem to imply is their release of sensitive documents. Now, it seems to be implying that they leak confidential employer, that it can't be disclosed, but they don't come out and say that, so you should, flat out deny that, or something, because if you're trying to imply that, you need to deny it. But, some of this is just not even worth responding to.
Thank you. Okay. We have one hand raised on the line from Michael. What?
There, this is Michael Tatone, community member. I'm gonna be brief. I really wish I could have been here earlier in the meeting to recommend that you censure the sheriff. I'm glad that that was accepted. I perceived that email and the public statement that he put out as completely just a bullying tactic. I really don't give the arguments that he made any credibility whatsoever. I believe that he is not supportive of oversight in any form, and that's really what this is coming down to, is just ways of articulating that in a way that makes it sound like he's not just doing what he believes is the bare minimum of that's to comply. I believe he's really not doing what he needs to do to comply, and is using kind of the shield of being somehow not required to do all this stuff. And I really am disgusted with that public statement. I'm really disgusted with the behavior of the sheriff, the lack of willingness to hold officers accountable for killing and injuring community members. And I hope that this board will step up and respond to that press release in a strong way.
Thank you. And then another hand raised from June.
Yes, hello. Really, Michael Tatone just said the comments I had wanted to say. I do support that you have censured the sheriff, and actually, I'll just, to save you time, I'll just let you know there's another community member out here that has the same views, and look forward to you taking strong action, and very happy that you're censoring Sheriff Ingram, and look forward to ongoing strong actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands raised.
May I just say one quick thing?
Everyone gets, we have to have a fair process, so.
I understand, I did not take my 3 minutes.
We'll give you 30 seconds.
I just wanted to say that this has actually caused effect to other attorneys. Myself and other attorneys who are involved in different policy and work are concerned that we may be retaliated against by the DSA because of our involvement.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, we do have procedures, so I don't always like to sound like I'm being mean. I wish we could all like talk. Thank you for the additional comments. So we'll close public comment now and bring it back to the CAC. So I think we have, well, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on what was brought up by Susan of going over the clean letter. And like discussing what we agree with on that, or just going forward with, I think it was Alberto who brought it up, to have our own letter. And how we go about that, or if there's any other ideas.
It sounded like there were 3 volunteers to create a communication, right? And so that, I would be prepared to look at that either at the next scheduled meeting, or if there's a sense of urgency to do it in a special meeting. But that, for me, that seems like the right way to have our people create our response. But there's been plenty said in this room and of, sensible responses to that communication and to this situation. And I have every confidence that the 3 people can come up with a good draft that then we can refine in the meeting if need be, and end up at something that hopefully we can agree on. Supporting the director of ILRO as profoundly as we know how.
Yeah, I'd like to respond actually point by point to some of these claims. I mean, to me, that I'd like it to be concise as possible. I like the clean letter, but it is a little bit long, to your point. I definitely agree with that. And so I'd like to go point by point. I obviously want to support all of them, but I think a special meeting in a couple weeks makes sense. I don't think we can draft it right now.
Don't forget that we have, NACO,
Oh, is that,
which is the last week of October.
And the annual report on the 21st.
Yeah, no report on October 21st. Yeah. And then we have a report on October 21st.
So day goes to 20th, is that? After? 27th?
27th through the 30th.
So 2 weeks from now, the 22nd.
We probably could staff that. If you want to have a special meeting on the side.
Or we would have to, we would do on the 22nd, there's something on that list.
There's also the anniversary.
That's it, yeah, that's, the 22nd is the anniversary of.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
look,
right,
that's-
right.
right. And there's an event at the Memorial Park. I think you signed up for that.
I did, I don't know, it starts at 4, I don't know how late it goes, but I imagine it's a couple hours, or,
It starts at 4.
right, anyone know when it ends?
We could do both.
Right, I mean, yeah,
It is varied year to year,
okay.
largely depending upon weather and how much food we would have in spring.
Gotcha. And I'm open that week, I could do anything that week, so.
You do it.
Yeah,
Is Tuesday better?
no, I have a council meeting.
22nd works.
So let's just do the 22nd.
Yep.
We'll need to see if we can get this right.
Such a.
That's what it is.
And we can be, staff could be in touch with the whole CAC about whether we be in this room or some other location, So whether we could, still staff that, I expect we could, and we probably could find some location, I just don't know.
I'm out of the country. I'm out of the country then, but
Okay, so,
And it doesn't have to be in a room, so theoretically, it can be outdoors at the
I
memorial.
was thinking that.
If it's a short meeting, that would probably be doable, but I don't think we'd be able to provide a virtual. I can't guarantee we'd be able to provide a virtual way to access it, it's outdoors.
I think if people are open to it, we can have an in-person only meeting that same day at the location of Danny Lopez gathering and have the meeting there.
Work for me.
I just, going back to the substance of what I just wanted to say that I think really foremost, we have to support ILRO and the staff, John and Audrey Gills. Emma Gill, I want to say Elizabeth, but that's somebody else. I think that that is first and foremost.
Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else have any thoughts?
What time? Would that be on that Wednesday? You don't know yet, okay. Then
Yeah,
to be determined.
sometime after, I mean, we would just need to separate ourselves to be able to have the meeting. And if the event starts at 4, I'm not sure.
5 or 6.
Yeah, somewhere where there's a table and we could isolate ourselves and that the public can also come and listen in, would work. I would say after 5:30,
Yeah.
It's dark by then.
or we could just shoot for 6, our normal time. Okay, 6 p.m.
If you-
Short, it's getting dark.
Yeah, it is dark.
It feels,
I mean, it is dark by
it
then.
feels tricky, in terms of noticing a meeting for a specific location, comporting with the Brown Act, et cetera. Let's just make sure that we get that right.
We give exact coordinates.
This ain't no joke, man.
No, I'm serious. I mean, like that, how specific?
Yeah, I don't know what the law requires in terms of a location.
Okay. So we have direction and Trevor, Nate and I will draft something. And we welcome comments from the public and ideas and language, whatever you'd like to send out to us. Okay,
By when? Would it be helpful that, like, say you need the feedback by a certain time?
This week.
Yeah, this week, I would imagine.
yes, as soon as possible. Okay, now we are moving on to, we don't have any presentations. And looking at the hour. We can table the rest of the agenda for next time unless there's something like really urgent. We will take public comment on items not on the agenda though, just if there are any. Seeing none.
Actually, yes. I just want to thank everyone for your good work, and there are lots of conversations were very robust and the feelings get caught. But I think you're doing an incredible job of communicating the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
PBS is showing 3 seconds in October.
On the 22nd and the 23rd.
Which is the first documentary about the ambulances.
Oh.
It's 28 minutes long. It won an Emmy. It's a very good film. No, it's not. It gives much too much credit to the Board of Supervisors. Okay, Board of Supervisors have almost nothing to do with formation.
Any emotion on the rest of the agenda?
They take credit.
Do you need to get a motion?
Just because I don't know if we need to, let's make a.
I'd like a motion to table the rest of the agenda until next meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? Thank you, the motion carries and we are adjourned at 8:50 p.m. We will see you all. There will be an announcement about the exact location, coordinates if needed. And time for the special meeting where we will review the draft letter. That will be the only item on that agenda. And then our regular meeting will be on November 12th next month. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.